Life is a journey,
not a destination.
And you don't need to go it alone.
Join me for practical tips and strategies on using mindfulness techniques and creating mindset shifts that can reduce stress, improve productivity, and give you a fresh perspective on work and life.
This is a Candy Factory Mini.
Mastering the Mindful Mindset
with Jose Johnson.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mastering the Mindful Mindset. I'm your host, Jose Johnson, and this week is a little bit different, and it's because I am joined by a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Megan Malik, and Megan is a licensed therapist, counselor, and is also an ordained minister, and we're going to talk today a little bit about the fact that we're all feeling a level of stress and anxiety and a lot of mental, emotional, spiritual anguish as a result of our current environment. And Megan's going to share some of her insights as a professional counselor and as a minister. And we're going to dive into some mindfulness kind of concepts as well, that things that you might be able to do to help yourself or the people you care about to deal with these situations a little bit better. So let's welcome Megan. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning, Jose.
It's so good to see you. I know that you're struggling with this as much as any of us are, and
true.
You know, we're all in this together. Some of us wear our pain on our sleeves. Others hide it fairly well. But whether you express it or not, we're all having to deal with some stuff. So
absolutely.
Yeah, from your perspective, let's start first from your perspective as a counselor, or someone who is dealing with the effects of people and their stresses and things in their relationships and in their personal lives. What are some of the things that you're seeing as a result of our current environment?
Oh my goodness. I would say the things that maybe were a little bothersome in January are now it's like the heat's turned up. So whatever was kind of simmering on the back burner for people has gotten amplified and heated up. And although it may feel not good, I've been inviting people to consider that perhaps one of the gifts of this time is that you can't ignore kind of those low level, less helpful ways of being in the world. One of the other things I think I'm seeing is, we're with the same group of people, which is usually a small group, pretty much 24/7. That's very new and different, and not having those external outlets like we used to have. And so the ways of letting off some steam have been closed for a lot. So again, that comes back to this kind of crucible-like experience. And so it's very normal if you're finding yourself a little bit more irritated or, as one of my stepdaughters would say, a little salty with other people. That's pretty normal and natural. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong or your spouse or your children are doing something wrong. It's just an invitation for how to live with that.
Right. That's one of the things that I see for so many people is they feel like they're the only one that's dealing with this situation. They feel that they're the only one feeling like the world doesn't make any sense, or and it's like, no, we're all there. And honestly, the world never made sense. So, but our grasp, our tenuous grasp on reality has been shaken. So when we look at these kind of things, you and I have had plenty of conversations about different concepts in terms of dealing with stress and anxiety and mental health and spiritual health and things like that. When we look at the symptoms that we're all suffering from, which there's going to be this varying range of symptoms. We've got
Absolutely.
we have the symptoms that exist. But the symptoms aren't the cause. So we also have causes, and then we have to have some level of treatment. So from your perspective, the symptoms, I think everybody's pretty clear on what those symptoms are: the saltiness, the anxiety, things like that. But and I think we got to get down to what those causes are before we can come up with an effective treatment plan. So can you share your insights on that?
Jose, I think we were talking Friday, and I was saying that when all humans are in situations where they, have a loss of control over their own external circumstances, when outcomes are unknown, when there's a lack of clear direction or information, we all tend to kind of go to whatever our neurological kind of predetermined way of overreacting might be. And so for some people that's anxious, hyperarousal, kind of above. And for some people it's more depressive, hypoarousal, going below. But it's very normal to have any of that. So we're having, what I tell people, a normal response to very abnormal situations. Our stress response system is just so stressed right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the stressors are stressed. So
the stressors are stressed.
Yeah, wow. So when we look at those kind of situations, from your perspective as both as someone working from the mental health, but then also as a pastor working with people's spiritual health, what are some of the steps that we can consider taking to help us to navigate these times a little bit more effectively?
So I use what I call the 3 A's, and I have to give a shout out. This does not come from me. This is recovery, the 3 A's of recovery.
Right.
And if you are at all related to any kind of 12-step, that is a very spiritual process, but it also has some solid connection to some mental health. So the first A is awareness. I'm aware that something is going on inside of me and around me. Acceptance, this is kind of the one that I think most of us, myself included, prefer to step over. And that is coming to a place where we stop bartering, arguing, fighting, being angry with, being depressed about the reality, and we just accept it for what it is. So for example, if it's raining outside, rather than having all the feels about it's raining, it's raining. And there's nothing wrong with not having acceptance right away. It's a process to get there. It means kind of slowing down, tuning in, and building some self-compassion and listening to those parts of ourselves that have, I think of the grief process as where this is. Anger, bargaining, despair, depression. This is all part and parcel of that. Then comes action. And so how I act is different. I have more choice in my response. Mm-hmm. If I'm okay with the fact that it's raining and I'm not arguing about it, I respond differently in the context of the rain. And I treat you, my friends and family, differently. And I drive my car differently. And I have different experiences when I'm, say, at a red light.
Right. Well, it's funny because when we think about action, I think a lot of times people take that as the responsiveness. And you have responsiveness and you have reactiveness. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of times people become more reactive than responsive. And responsive to me is that you're coming from a place of understanding. You're coming from a place of conscious awareness,
yes.
Mindfulness, if you will. And so that you can have the correct action, as opposed to when you are reactive. It's a reflexive, protective
yes.
kind of thing. So I think that getting more information is always good, and that's part of what we're trying to do today, is to give people a little bit of knowledge so they can apply knowledge to their situation. And having things like support, and obviously what you're saying about awareness and the ability to acknowledge the situation,
yes.
Understanding that it is what it is, to use my own phrase early, but it is what it is, and what can you do to control the situation? And if there's nothing you can do to control the situation, then all you can do is control your responses to
response to it. Yeah, and I would even say, I think we tend to say, oh, this response is a totally different action than this reaction. And I would say it's even more subtle than that. So I recognize I'm triggered and I don't want to do something. I can react by saying, I don't want to do this. Or I can take a deep breath. I can come to myself. I can say, you know what? I don't want to do this. So I need to let the person know I don't want to do this. And I can say, thanks for the invitation. I'm not going to be joining you today. I'm not going to be doing that.
Right.
So it's the same thing, but the how is different.
Yeah. Well, it's our emotions tend to get the best of us, and a lot of people have the idea that emotions run their lives or they suppress their emotions, and emotions are there to serve us. There's no such thing as a good or a bad emotion.
That is
Emotions
correct.
are just there. I like to say that there are useful or appropriate emotions based on the situation, and in unneeded or unproductive emotions for a situation. So when we're dealing with this overwhelm of emotions, some of which some of us have not felt for a long time, what are some of the techniques that you suggest to people to use, kind of a mindful approach to dealing with their emotions, dealing with their stressors, and to help them to attain a level of balance in their approach to things?
So, Jose, I would say kind of back to the awareness place. Believe it or not, most people may be experiencing their emotions, but what is very difficult for most people that I see in a variety of contexts that I'm in is naming the emotion. Dan Siegel would say you've got to name it to tame it. So simply slowing down with yourself and identifying what the feeling is. So disappointment is different than anger, and frustration and irritation. And so they're all maybe on a gradation, rage, but being able to kind of pinpoint where that is one of the processes of kind of naming. It helps us get in our frontal cortex here. Noticing how that sensation comes into our body. I think we're a society that doesn't promote our being awareness in our skin, if you will. And so a strategy is simply to slow down, put both feet on the floor, wherever you are, kind of orient in this present moment, and do a quick body scan. What do I notice? What body part is literally talking to me? What do I sense in that moment? If it feels too scary to do that, and for some people it really does, the overwhelm is too scary to go right into their skin. Just taking 2 feet, putting them on the floor, like I'm doing right now. If you're able to sit in a chair, feeling the chair, really tuning into what it feels like to have the chair and the ground supporting you. This is a grounding technique. You're doing no work. The ground has you. You're held. You're safe. And then coming into the present moment, looking around, and 5 things that you see, 4 that you hear, 3 that you smell. You can go to tactile, what you feel. And again, this brings you into the present moment. It separates you. Another thing that can be super helpful when emotions come on and you start to have words for it is to say, rather than I am mad, there is a feeling of madness here. There's a feeling of sadness. See if you can be with it so that you are experiencing it, but it's not all of you. It's not all of you. There's more that's there.
Yeah, that's great. I think it was, I think I got this from Tony Robbins. And I'm not sure who he got it from, but this idea of transformational vocabulary, right? The words that we use to describe things have so much power, and especially when it comes to emotions, it's the question of, you're saying, I'm so angry, and you need to stop and ask yourself, am I angry or am I scared? Am I angry or am I uncertain? And looking at it is like, well, what am I really? And start to break it down. And then when you continue to ask yourself those questions, you kind of get to a point where you get that awareness, that clarity of what it is you're actually feeling. And then, like you're saying with Dan Siegel, when you name it, you can tame it. So once you know what you're actually dealing with, is this fear, is this uncertainty, is this, what is it? So now that I know what it is, now I can work with it.
And Jose, I think what you're saying, right? So anger can be a sign that my boundaries have been crossed, or it can be what's called a secondary emotion. And Sue Johnson writes a lot about this, and it's really helpful with couple work. So it's safer to be angry. It's societally acceptable, but oftentimes anger covers fear, hurt, shame. And there's a lot, online on Pinterest, you can find these because they have a lot of this for children right now. It's called the anger iceberg. And so you see the anger up above, and then you see all these other feeling words below. And so, we can have more than one feeling at a time. Anger is helpful for, as Brene Brown would say, armoring up, but it is not helpful for connecting with others in that sort of sense. It can give us good fuel and good information. But I don't want to say it always does that. Sometimes it's really a good cue of like, wait a second, I need to set a boundary. I need to take care of myself. This situation is not a safe one. And so that's where slowing down is really helpful with anger in particular.
Yeah. Well, as someone who deals both in the mental world, and I hate to make distinctions between things, but that's the way most of us do things. We kind of categorize stuff. So we have the clinical mental approach to things. We have the spiritual approach with your work as an ordained pastor. I think a lot of times that because people don't feel like they have support, they don't have someone that can listen or understand them or provide them guidance. And you're working in those two realms, which obviously are overlapped. What would you suggest to people who feel that they are disenfranchised, that feel that they're alone, that feel like they're suffering? What are some of the steps that they can take in terms of developing the support, either the support system in their own lives, or if they need to seek outside help? What are some of the first steps that you would suggest people take?
I guess I want to clarify. The outside world sees what I do as separate. I see it as very integrated, and I'm not actually serving in a traditional church at this point in time. So my primary ministry is my counseling practice. And so for those who are interested in incorporating contemplative or spiritual practices, that's an option, never force. So I don't want to kind of give a misnomer about who I am, but I am affiliated with the Christian tradition and the United Church of Christ. So, if you are in a faith community, you would be surprised how many people have questions and doubts. So talking with your church pastor, or if there's a Bible study or a spiritual group, would be a good place. For anyone who has struggled or knows persons who have struggled with addiction, I think Al-Anon for codependence, and people who know people who have suffered and struggle with alcohol use disorder is a good one. Online, there's actually quite an abundance of resources for anyone in a variety of recovery things. There's She Recovers. There's a whole host of online supports for people that are looking for sort of a recovery mindset that is not geared only in AA, but is wider than that. And I say recovery because recovery circles are the ones that I've seen that most integrate mental health and spiritual practice, as well as most of them offer support, connection. You can find things virtually, you can find things in person. There are Zoom rooms, there's Facebook closed groups, Facebook chat groups. Right here in Lancaster, we have what's called Mental Health America. And that is a nonprofit that provides education as well as resourcing. And currently they offer free support groups for a variety of presenting, what we call presenting problems. So depression, anxiety, bipolar, as well as persons who have lost someone to suicide. The suicide hotline number, all of these are wonderful places to turn. And if you're willing to take the big risk, just letting somebody that you know that you're close with, that you're suffering, you may be surprised that they would say that too. I would say one of the number one things that I see happen before my very eyes is when, like, say, two in a couple underneath that anger comes to the place that they both feel the same. And that might be guilt, that might be shame, that might be a perception that they're letting the other one down. And once that softening happens, they become a resource and a safe support for each other. Certainly, you would be a place to turn. I would be a place to turn. don't, there's a wealth of options. And Mental Health America even has free counseling, Jose, offered right now, free individual counseling that you can sign up for.
No, that's awesome. All right. Well, Megan, thank you so much for taking time with me today. And this is a conversation that I would love to go into deeper, just you and I over a cup of coffee at some point.
Sure.
And I'd love to get you back on the show at some point in the future, and we can talk about more things. I really appreciate your insight, and keep fighting the good fight.
Will do. You also. Thank you, Jose.
All right, you're welcome. All right, so thank you for spending time with me today. This was a different kind of episode, a little longer than normal, but there's just so much good information there. And again, if you or someone that you love is having trouble dealing with the stresses and anxieties that our current situation between COVID, the election, and the economic downturns, and all these different things, if you need help, please seek help, whether it's just a friend, a family member, someone like me, someone like Megan, whatever it is. Just get help, because you're not alone, and there are people out there that love you and that care for you and want the best for you. All right, so make sure that you also keep tuning into all of the other great shows on the Candy Factory Collective, and support this show by liking, sharing, and subscribing. And I will see you next week with another episode. So until then, remember, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So make it great. Mastering the Mindful Mindset is part of the Candy Factory mini-series and is a proud member of the Candy Factory Collective. You can find the show streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, and you can subscribe to the audio version anywhere you get your podcast.
Jose Johnson has traveled the world competing and teaching martial arts.
He's an entrepreneur, musician, author, and speaker.
Check out Jose's other podcast,
The Trumpet Gurus Hang,
And learn more about his book,
Mindfulness Secrets, at his website,
josejohnson.com.
Mastering the Mindful Mindset is produced by the Candy Factory Collective.
at the Candy Factory Co-working Campus in Lancaster, PA.
Our music was written and recorded by Jose. Production support by Anna Tran.
administrative support by Ann Kirby, Ariana Henderson,
Krisha Martzel, Jason Mundock, and Robert Diggs.
Notes and links can be found at the show post at our website,
CandyFactoryCollective.com.
Candy Factory.
Collective.